Um, the existing plan and gable, also on page 65 and 66, probably page 65, sorry, 65 and 67 show the existing. Thank you, Leona. Appreciate your help here.
Is this the existing that we're looking at, Matt?
Yes.
It's just come up now. You can see the existing.
Page 65. 67.
67 is the existing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'll continue on with the summary of the officer's report. The application was refused. You can see the report of handling on page 23 to 38. In addition to the basic outline proposed, the planning officer also noted, given the positioning of the existing building set further back in the plot than the adjacent plot, that the proposed two-storey rail extension in conjunction with existing dwelling would result in a two-storey wall extending approximately 9.3 metres beyond the rear of the adjacent house and 1 metre from the common boundary. This was considered to have a significant visual impact to the detriment of residents in the adjoining dwelling. The cumulative impact of the two-storey rear extension and existing dwelling and the proximity of the two-storey rear extension to the boundary would have a significant impact on daylight, reaching the rooms on the rear elevation of the adjacent building, would also result in significant overshadowing over the rear garden of the adjacent house in the late afternoons and evenings during the summer months. A single-storey extension may be considered acceptable solely. However, combined with the two-storey was considered to exacerbate the visual impact on the adjoining neighbouring property. The cumulative length of extensions together extends to 12.3 metres when combined with the adjacent building. The officer report made other comments that it's not considered that the proposal would overwhelm the existing dwelling in terms of design. The proposal retains adequate garden ground and would not ever consider to lead to overdevelopment of the plot. Therefore, the officer's report considered the proposal contrary to policy D1 and D14 of the LDP. D1 item I, the cumulative impact of the two-storey rear extension, single-storey rear extension and existing dwelling would have a significant impact on the visual amenity of the adjacent property to the east, given the size proximity to the site boundary. And the second point, the cumulative impact of the proposed two-storey extension and single-storey extension and existing development would give rise to a significant degree of overshadowing and loss of daylight towards the adjacent dwelling to the east, given the size and proximity. The second element is the proposal is contrary to policy D14 of the adopted local development plan, as the rear extension would detract from the character and design of the existing dwelling by virtue of its size and shallow pitch. In relation to the grounds of appeal of the appellant, the appellant's case is contained in notice of review and statement reasons on pages 39 to 50 of your papers, together with supporting information on page 53 to 68. The applicant considers the proposal design follows closely policy D1 and D14 mentioned in his visual note, and would ask reconsider the decision. In response, in relation to policy D1, the applicant considers it not to dominate or overwhelm the original form or appearance of the house, and is subordinate to the scale and appearance of the existing house. Extension is in proportion of the original house and does not exceed 100% of the footprint of the original house. Extensions does not dominate or overwhelm the neighbouring properties, and as it is extended by only 2.6 metres from the existing building mass. According to the guidance, double-storey extension should not extend beyond 4 metres from the rear elevation of the existing house and be within 2 metres of the boundary or terrace, which is not. Extension, appellant considers the extension is not direct overlooking or overshadowing of the adjacent property, and they included a plan with a daylight study that they put in regard to a 40-degree angle approach. The second part of the response was in relation to the refusal under contrary to policy D14. The applicant considered the double-storey extension has the same roof pitch design as the existing. It is extended 2.6 metres from the existing building mass and has a minimal impact on the building size. Members are just reminded that to access the proposal against the development plan and other material considerations. I think that's said enough with regard to that.
No, thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate that. Can I open it out to the committee? And I see Councillor Miller wishing to come in.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have actually had a look at this. Those of us who are a wee bit longer in the tooth, I think we went out to this Lauriston Grove for a site visit maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But in saying that, this particular one, to me, it's obviously going to be overshadowing, it's obviously going to be massing. And as Matt said earlier on there, it's actually 12.6 metres out from the original house. So, and they say themselves, it's not 100% more, but we're supposed to be keeping under 50% more. So it's twice as big as we should be allowing, as far as I'm aware. Not only that, it says the policy states that we're 2 metres away from the neighbouring property. Well, this one's 1 metre away from the neighbouring property. So I quite agree with the recommendation to refuse.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Councillor Convery.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question was along the lines of Stuart's as well. I mean, because I'd noticed on the papers that it had said that 100% of it wasn't more than 100% of the footprint. I was just wondering, Matt, do you know offhand what percentage of the footprint of the house this proposed extension is? Obviously, if they're relating to 100%, it must be more than 50.
I would just refer you to the plans as in relation to size. I think we'd probably get a good impression from both page 58, which is let's see, the existing block plan on page 59, and a proposed block plan on page 60 in relation to the existing and the proposed outline on the site. To clarify, the 3 metre extension at the rear, which is a previous extension, would be removed, let's say, and the whole the 2-storey extension would extend up to the 3 metre line of the existing, and then a further 3 metres to the rear. So you have essentially a 6, on all intents and purposes, approximately a 6 metre extension.
Which is a double.
About 12.3.
Yeah. The 9, just to clarify, the 12, the extent of the existing house, which would go right to the rear of the proposed development. So that's the full extent of it. I should say that it's the design or the layout within the site makes it that it's skewed and not in line with the adjacent properties. So the existing building was, to a certain extent, always had an aspect onto the adjacent number 12.
Because looking at the pictures that was sent, you can see the extension that's there at the minute is actually, it's quite large, it's quite long as it goes right across. So I can only imagine what it would be like if it was to go up one and then come out another extension again at the bottom. So
yes, you can see possibly from items page 68 on the plans that Leona had put up there. And you can see on the top left hand side, that is essentially the
Leona, could you share those plans again, please?
On page 68.
Yeah, just get them up just now.
Yeah.
You can see
it's quite significant, really.
If you look at the gable with the door and the two windows on it, so just to the left of that, you see the two-story extension there, and then the flat roofed extension further along there. So that essentially is an impression of the whole new element to the house as it stands.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Provost, you wishing to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I mean, certainly it's a bit more awkward when you can't, or we haven't the opportunity to see it in the flesh, so to speak, but looking at the plans, you just get the sense that this is a very, very large extension. And clearly, the neighbour is quite, exercised by it, and that seems to be backed up by the comments of the planning officer that, it seems to be the height, the second elevation, and the blockage of light, which seems to be, from reading this correctly, the cause of concern. But I have to say, I think the cause of concerns are probably quite genuine in this case. It does seem an extraordinarily large extension, and I think the second floor, as I say, is the thing that probably is creating the main problem. So I tend to support the planners in this. I wouldn't be supportive of giving an extension of this size planning permission.
Thank you very much. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think I just agree with what everybody else says. It really is a big extension. And I think I would agree with what the planners and what everybody else says, what the committee says here. I'd be in favour of rejection in this instance.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunningham, are you wishing to come in?
Just in support of what everybody else has said, and the planner.
Thank you very much. I think everyone, unless anyone has anything they're wishing to come back in, everyone does seem to be in agreement with what the planners have said and the reasons for refusal. There seems to be a significant additional overshadowing that would be caused to the neighbour and the amount of massing in this extension. Can I move that we accept the recommendation that is in the papers before us to refuse? And if I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Convery. Eamon, can you please note that?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, the LRB's decision is to support or uphold the decision made by the planning officer and to refuse planning permission for the reasons as outlined in the decision notice.
Thank you very much. Can I please move us on to agenda item number 4, which is 2020/13 subdivision of view and erection of 2 semi-detached dwelling houses at number 2 Bonaccord Road, Busby. Just first of all, do we have enough information in front of us to make a decision today?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I pass over to yourself, Mr. Greenan, in the first instance? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Thank you. This case before the LRB is review number 20/13, and the planning application number is 20/156, and it starts on page 69 to 115 of your papers. The site at 2 Bonaccord Road in Busby. Proposal is for the subdivision of the few and erection of 2 semi-detached dwelling houses. There was no further new matters raised. You can see the plans on pages 111 and 115 of your papers, and then the proposed plans and elevations are in particular page 113 and 14, with sections on page 115. The application site is in an area of overgrown land located at the junction of Bonaccord Road and Bull Road in Busby. It is generally triangular in shape, narrow at the front and widening towards the rear. It's a long side boundary. It's bounded by Bull Road, which narrows to a lane beyond Bonaccord Road as it drops towards the main street. The site is therefore elevated from Bull Road by a stone retaining wall. The approach at the front of the site is dominated by 2-storey cottage flats set out in a regular street pattern. The proposal is for the erection of 2 semi-detached villas with pitched roofs and shared gable front projection over 2 storeys, each measuring approximately 5.5 metres in width and 11.2 in depth approximately. Each house has a footprint of approximately 55 square metres, and an overall height to roof ridge is approximately 8.4 metres. With 2 car parking spaces would be provided at the front of each house in a parking court accessed by way of a shared driveway from the corner of Bull Road. There were no representations in relation to this application. The road service was a consultee and replied no objection subject to conditions. And that's individual on page 95 and 96 of your papers. In relation to the planning officer's report of handling and decision notice, that can be seen on page 83 and 92 and 99 and 100 as the decision notice. The report outlined that it requires to be assessed against policies D1, 2 and 15 of the adopted local development plan. It was noted that the area as you approach the site from the south along Bull Road is characterised by blocks of cottage flats with generous gardens and wide between the blocks. The site was formerly garden ground associated with these flats, and it was further noted the site is elevated. The proposed houses will sit approximately 2 metres higher than Bull Road at the front and in excess of 2.5 metres higher at the rear. The proposed houses are set further back than the flatted blocks to the extent that it addresses neither Bonaccord nor Bull Road. The aspects from Bull Road on the approaching site from the front would be incongruous due to the marked change in the house type and its prominent elevated position on a narrowed fronted site. The officer continued to state that considered incongruous siting has been selected to address off-street parking, which will be accommodated in courtyard type in front of the houses. The parking was considered to dominate the front of the site and the corner of Bull Road. Consider the houses would visually dominate the impression of the proposal having been shoehorned into the site. in contrast to the established character of the area, where the outlying properties are set in a regular street pattern with consistent building lines and generous gardens. It was considered that the constrained layout and overdominant design in an elevated site with limited setting occupied car parking would be detrimental to the character and visual amenity of the area. There were no significant issues in relation to overshadowing, as mentioned. The officer also noted that house number 2 would have views over the lower floor family room and upper floor bedroom towards the rear elevation of those immediately adjacent flats and associated garden area. The separation distance of the common boundary with the neighbouring property is not considered to be sufficient to mitigate this impact and result in adverse overlooking of the adjacent properties. Road service have confirmed their arrangement is acceptable in road safety terms. Given all these considerations, they also considered that the proposal was contrary to policy D1 of the adopted local plan and D15. D1 in relation to its unsympathetic siting and scale of design, and D15 given it related to prominent siting, scale and proximity of the adjacent flatted blocks, does not reflect the character of the area and pattern of development. In relation to the appellant's ground of appeal, that is contained in the notice of review and associated plans on page 103 and 103 to 115, and the submitted plans were referenced. The notice of review referenced policy D1 and that they disagreed with the statement as they considered that the proposed semi-detached houses were subservient to the mass of the adjacent floor in a block flatted development and the ridge line is lower. I disagree with the statement that the development will overlook the adjacent gardens. Simply, there are no, drawing attention that there are no windows on the gable, so no overlooking could occur. In relation to policy 15, the appellant disagreed with the statement on D15 by the officer, considering that the houses are in keeping with the area style and are smaller in mass and scale than the adjacent block. Site is an unusual, having an elevated aspect, but is in a large and good garden space. Both the car parking area and the garden spaces are in accordance with policies. And there was no adverse comments at the pre-application stage. Members are reminded just to assess the proposals against the development plan and any other material considerations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Greenan. I'm going to open it out to the committee. Councillor McLean, I see your hand up. Are you wishing to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, I would agree with the recommendation and refusal on the outlines D1 and D15, especially D15 overlooking into the adjacent houses and the character of the area, obviously. But that's kind of my reasoning of it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor McLean. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. To me, it's a backland development because it's obviously behind the houses, and it's. I also disagree with the road cutting into Bull Road. I see in page 115. They've got a shared driveway at the front, but they've got another bit trying to cut into Bull Road. I completely disagree with that. Policy D1 and D15 are very similar. That reflect the scale and character of the surrounding houses and in keeping with local buildings. It's not even close to what local buildings are because, as they say themselves, it's flatted developments. It's nothing like anything that's anywhere near that area. Although I must admit, I actually quite like the look of the houses. I also take issue when it says, can you ask that the site be visited? Number 2 Boyne-Accord was actually the guy who worked with us, and I used to pick him up. So for 30 years I went in that bit, so I know exactly what the site looks like. I don't really need to go and visit it today.
So may I?
To clarify, I would absolutely agree with the planning officer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Mr. Greenan, you wishing to come in?
Sorry, my apologies. I don't know if I referenced also page 115, which just shows the sections through the site, just for your further information. Just gives an impression of the height differences within the site. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Provost, you wishing to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Really, just some information. I mean, I take the point that's been made in the report about overlooking and such like, and that would be a concern I would certainly support that the planning officers have raised. However, looking at the pictures, I mean, it doesn't look a very visually attractive site at the moment. I mean, almost derelict. I mean, I'm trying to get my head around what's going on here. Is this somebody, a developer that owns the land, effectively a bit of unsightly ground, and is really packing two houses in, as it were, but perhaps there's maybe not room for the type of development that's suggested. But am I right in thinking that this particular area would be suitable for development? But it's just that it's this particular massing, as it were, that's causing the problem.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miller, you put your hand up there.
Yes, so just to clarify for Jim, Boyne-Accord cottages were always council owned, and this particular area was council owned. I actually paid particular attention to see whether they claimed ownership, and they do claim ownership, but I don't know when. There was maybe Siobhan knew of when this area was sold, or is it still in council ownership? But certainly,
I don't know who owns it at the moment, but obviously that's who owns the land. Obviously, is not a material consideration, as you're likely aware. But I'm not aware. Sorry.
Just for information, very quickly, and I know that it's. Sorry, Councillor Miller.
Sorry, Boyne-Accord cottages were all council owned. I don't know whether there's one or two been bought since then.
Just for information, and I know it's not a planning consideration, but there is a strip of land right down the front of Bull Road that is still under council ownership. So the red lined plan that we have, not all of that is within private ownership. There is still a council. It's like about a metre and a half width right down Bull Road that is under our ownership. But Mr. Greenan, you wanted to come in?
Yes, sorry, thank you, Chair, I appreciate that. Just was reference to the condition of the site was referenced there. Just to be clear, the officer visited the site, and the trees and shrubs were in situ at the time the report was made or whatever. Subsequently, a lot of trees and shrubs have been cleared from the site, and that was after the decision of the officer or whatever. Just to clarify, so that the pictures are shown were just a very recent pictures of the condition of the site as it is at the moment.
Okay, I mean, I sense that the site's been tidied and looks visually more attractive, or is it somebody just preparing the site for development of some sort? Is that? I mean, I'm assuming whoever, well, they must have, I guess, some ownership of the title, or you wouldn't be putting a planning application in to build two houses, would you? So they must have bought the land from somebody, from the council or whoever. I just wonder, I'm trying to establish, is it an area of land which is suitable for development, but we just don't like this particular development, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. It is within the general urban area, so each individual proposal would have to be viewed on its individual merits, as this one is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Are you wanting to come back in? Sorry, Provost.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand. As I say, I'm probably labouring the point, but I was just trying to establish whether it was an area which potentially is suitable for development, and had the applicant come in with perhaps a smaller development, we wouldn't have any issue with it, you know, and it didn't have the overshadowing and such like. But I think I've got there at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunningham, are you wishing to come in? Councillor Convery?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Unless anyone else is wanting to come in, I think everyone did seem to be broadly in agreement. I'd like to move that we accept the planner's refusal, or uphold the planner's decision to refuse. If I have a seconder. Thank you very much, Councillor McLean. Unless anyone is otherwise minded.
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I pass back to yourself, Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, the local review body's decision is to uphold the decision of the planning officer and to refuse planning permission for the reasons as set out in the decision notice.
Thank you very much. And that's all we have before us today. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chair.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Bye.
Appreciate that. Thank you.